EPAWA Weather Consulting, headquartered in Worth Whitehall, Pennsylvania, this is Weather Weeklies, an informative video of the ins and outs of weather that affect you most in the EPAWA coverage area. The thoughts and opinions expressed in this video are those of the forecaster alone and may not reflect those of the staff of EPAWA Weather Consulting LLC as a whole, nor its constituents. Now, without further ado, here is meteorologist Bobby Martrich with Weather Weeklies.
Good Sunday morning to another edition of Weather Weeklies for Sunday, February 2nd. We have a lot of information to cover in today's video, and we were going to start off with, of course, what we released on social media, which was the groundhog did in fact see its shadow this morning, which signifies 6 more weeks of winter. In this case, usually we understand that this is just a not a parody, but it's not really to be taken seriously. Some people actually do take this seriously, but we actually agree with this prognostication this time. Some years, actually most years we don't, but this case in particular we do. So we think that is going to continue. First, we're going to start off with today. Snow showers are expected this evening. This is some of you are going to be like, what? Huh? Snow showers? Yes. This is a warm front that is associated with a low pressure that's moving through southeastern Canada. And the warm front is moving through. It's going to get a little bit of upper level assist, a little kick to it as it moves through. So there could be a coating to an inch, probably a coating to a half inch as you get closer to I-78. When you get across I-80, it's a coating to an inch. We're going to have text alert sent for that today because we will have some accumulation with that. Again, this is this evening. Might start in north central PA as early as late afternoon, but most of us will be during the course of the evening. When I say evening, I don't know why people argue with me on this. Evening is between 6 and 12. Early evening is like 6 to 8. Late evening is like 10 to midnight, right? That's still evening. All right, so this is that course of the evening. This moves off the coast by midnight, and then warm air will advect into the region after that. So whatever you're going to get by tomorrow morning, it's going to disappear pretty quickly, okay? So we're going to send out alerts for that today. Wanted to touch on that before we went any further. Year-to-date snowfall is behind average everywhere now, except for in the Scranton-Wilkes-Barre area, which is barely hanging on to above average. Some of these places are not very far below average, like Allentown, Harrisburg, are close. The rest of them are below, solidly below average to this point. That may change here in over the next couple of weeks where we get additional snow chances. I don't think initially, but we'll cover that in today's video. Here is what average snowfall is. This is updated for the February and March period now. Snowiest month, climatologically speaking, of the year is right here, right in the February period. This is the snowiest climatological period of the entire year for everywhere. When you get into March, you see it notably goes down in most areas, and that usually occurs earlier in the month rather than later if you're going to have that. And we may have some of that this year, depending on some things that I'm going to talk about in today's video. Here is our monthly projections from the Friday long-range outlook. We ditched January because we're now in February. And I saw a lot of moans and groans about this. The near to slightly above average temperature projection in February. The only thing that has been steadfast this entire time and that we are the highest confidence in is the slightly above average temperatures, or excuse me, slightly above average precipitation. But this slightly above average, near to slightly above average temperatures is what jumped out at some people, and they were moaning and groaning about that. Like, well, winter's over. No, it doesn't mean winter's over. It just means that there's going to be some spikes in temperatures that we're going to have, most notably over the next week at certain times. Synoptically driven warmth is going to get temperatures well into the 40s and even some 50s once that system is moving through, but they're going to start off wintry, so it's a little deceiving. If I give you, let's just say I give you a 5-day period, right, and I say that on the first day it's going to be 10 degrees above average. Each of the next 4 days is -2 below average. That entire period is averaging near to slightly above average because of 1 day skewing it. That's how it works. So it's don't be deceived by that. That doesn't really mean it's going to be warm per se. You'll have some warm periods of certain days here and there that are synoptically driven that will drive the temperatures and skew that a little bit. So it's not really that, oh no, we're turning milder here. I don't think we're doing that. So there is we have a near to slightly below average projection in snowfall. That was the other moan and groan there. This is going to be depending on how much we're going to have some icing events up until we get closer to the deeper into the second week of February, but there will be some snow, and any one of those storms can really produce, and this could change certainly. We're just going to have to see how this transpires here throughout the month. And then March, we have near to slightly below average with slightly above average precipitation again. So if nothing else, we're putting a dent into some of these deficits that we have as far as precipitation goes, and this is certainly needed. Very high confidence, actually, for for the precipitation to be above average this month. I probably should have made this a little higher than it is, in terms of the confidence on the right-hand side, because I'm really confident in that fact that we'll have at least precipitation, whatever form that may come in. We welcome that, whatever it comes in, whatever form that is. Okay, so we talked about the Matt and Julian oscillation over pretty much every week, right? And we were talking about how the GFS was taking this through, instead of collapsing it from phase 3 into the circle of death and is kind of hanging it out here like it was doing last week on the European model. That has given up on that idea. Instead, it's going through. It went through phase 4 this week. It's now in phase 5. I'm about to go into phase 6 and go out in this direction like this, okay? Now, these are lower amplitude, but they are still in phase 4, phase 5, phase 6, nevertheless. This is the European on the right. But it is low amplitude, which means it's subject to other things that can offset it if they are set up correctly. So normally, this is a measure of tropical forcing in the Pacific, or actually not just the Pacific, going all the way into back to the Indian Ocean as well. But wherever the best convection is, creates latent heat release processes, which affects the jet stream typically. Now, this is low amplitude, so it's not going to have a huge, profound effect, but it's still going through. This is a mild phase in phase 4, right? Phase 5, also a mild phase typically. This is a torch phase in phase 6. So is phase 7. Absolute torch. Okay, so you're saying, okay, well, we're going through these warmer and torch phases here. What are you telling me that we're going to be colder than average for? That doesn't make any sense. Okay, and by the way, the CFS also shows the same thing. Same general idea, just low amplitude in this case. So if you look at the in a negative ENSO, we're to use a negative ENSO because we are in a La Nina, and I know I haven't been posting things about the trend of the La Nina here. We're solidly in a weak La Nina now, so I kind of gave up on that whole idea here. We're not making an argument about that anymore. We were just making an argument about when it was going to arrive, and it took its time getting here. But we are getting the weak La Nina effects. This is what a phase 5 typically shows. This is all warmth over our region here. Okay, this is what a phase 6 shows. Again, torch phase. Phase 7. Absolute torch in February in a negative ENSO. So these are all warmer phases. So why are we not getting warmer? Well, in this case, the teleconnections can trump the MGO. What are the teleconnections? Well, teleconnections are intraseasonal drivers that can offset the effects of the Matt and Julian oscillation, even if, especially if it's a weaker amplitude like it is. Okay, so it's susceptible to other forces intraseasonally that can offset this pattern. Now, why is this is like 2 weeks in advance that we can look at something like this. It's a shorter term projection here, but we're starting to see now a negative EPO come in here. We're starting to see a negative NAO, which is your blocking in Greenland. We're starting to see a cross-polar flow coming back into the United States, but we have no ridging in the western U.S. That means you have a gradient pattern, a gradient overrunning pattern that goes like this. This is your gradient pattern. What a temperature gradient is, it separates cold air from warm air, and along that boundary, you get these areas of low pressure that will move along it in succession, and they'll be frequent. Wherever these lows track determines your precipitation type, and that is solely dependent on where the gradient boundary itself is, wherever it's located. And that's the pattern we're heading into over the next couple of weeks. Okay, here's the European ensemble, and I can show you the GFS ensemble too. It's showing the same thing. European ensemble for the East Pacific oscillation, which is your ridging into Alaska and the Gulf of Alaska. You see it's negative for this entire 2-week period. It does not go positive. If it's positive, it's warm. If it's negative, it's not. This is your cross-polar flow inducing that comes across and brings colder air into the United States. This is the Arctic oscillation. It's your cold air source from Canada. It needs to be negative in order for it to be cold air. It was positive for a while. Now it's going negative again. Okay, see that? It goes all the way through the end of the period. So that is checking the box as well. Then you look at North Atlantic oscillation. This is your blocking in Greenland. This is what keeps storms a little bit further south and doesn't allow them to cut into the Great Lakes and just absolutely flood us with warmth, which typically happens in phase 5, phase 6, phase 7. But in this case, look where it is. It's going negative. Okay, so that will keep these storms a little bit further south. That combined with these other things of the cold air source in Canada and the cross-polar flow from the EPO are going to combine to give us at least some wintry systems. It might not be all snow, And matter of fact, the first couple won't be, but you're going to have the opportunity here for snow and at least ice and wintry systems continuing for a while. I mentioned that the ridging out west is not there. It's negative P&A. You want to see this positive in order to have big ridging and big amplification. So we're not going to get that. So what we get out of that is a gradient pattern. It's more zonal. Kind of goes like this, right? And again, the lows will move along that boundary, and wherever this gradient, temperature gradient boundary sets up is going to dictate what we're going to be getting from these storms. Okay. Now, I don't think this fully sets in until the second week. This is looking at the second week of February here. I think once we get past the 9th, we're going to be in a consistently colder than average pattern. So the first couple up until then that we're going to be dealing with, these overrunning events, are not going to be snow for the most part. Okay. I'm going to show you a loop here from the latest GFS, and I can show you just about anything. The European model is doing the same thing, but this is what we're looking at. Okay, this is going to start with Wednesday overnight. You see all this pink and pink there? That's freezing rain. We're going to have freezing rain going over to rain on Wednesday. Then we get a couple days later, Saturday night into Sunday, same thing. Maybe a little snow at the onset, then freezing rain, then rain. It has, GFS has something a little here around the 10th or 11th. The European model doesn't have that. But then once the colder pattern is established, then we can get into more snow events, and that's going to be near the 12th, 13th. And the European model has that as well. This is the GFS showing this. So I'll let this loop again, just so you can see these different. This is Saturday night. The second one, again, starts off maybe as a brief snow, and then it goes over to sleet, freezing rain, and then rain. It has something here on the 11th, which the European model does not have, but we have to keep an eye on that too. I think it's really the 12th and the 13th is your best chance at snow, like primarily snow out of this system, and maybe a good bit of it. We'll see. This is still something, and we're sitting here on the 2nd, looking at the 13th. When you get back past 7 days, things get a little murky, but this is the overrunning pattern that we're in, and as long as the temperatures are cooperative and this boundary is far enough south, we can get more wintry. And in this case, when you have these overrunning systems, there's usually high pressure sitting over the top. So I'll stop here. There's a big high that's sitting up here initially, right up over the top. So it's basically creating a cold air damming situation at the surface where you have warm air coming in aloft, but at the surface, it's cold enough to support wintry precipitation, and that's why you get sleet, freezing rain. Now, we had one of those last week. Okay, there's some school delays in some parts of the area from like I-78 points north, even some school closings because of some icing that was taking place. Each one of these are going to get colder and colder and colder, I think. The first one here on Wednesday is going to feature more in the way of freezing rain. We didn't have much freezing rain from the last one. This one looks like it's going to have maybe a couple tenths of an inch of freezing rain. It could be a pretty dangerous situation, especially Thursday morning. So if you have kids at school-age children, expect that at least parts of the area are going to have at least delays, if not closures, here on Thursday this week from that. Going forward to the weekend, obviously no school to worry about, but there's that first one. See all that pink? That's a lot, okay? And then we get that to the weekend here, Saturday night to Sunday. No school, obviously, but this one's a little colder initially, so you get some snow at the onset. Not much, but a little bit. Then it goes over to sleet, freezing rain, and then eventually rain there too. Now we're getting past the 9th. Now we get into more chances for snow because they have a lot stronger of high up here. See that? 1,043 millibars is what it has right above that storm. So there's possibilities going forward. This is not winter's over or anything like that. So I do agree with the groundhog from that standpoint, even though it's just... so average temperatures, taking a look at, we're going to use Lehigh Valley International Airport as the example here, because it's the centermost point of our coverage area. And the average high there today is 39. It goes up to 42 by the time we get to February 16th. The dates are on the bottom here. But you can see how we're doing this up and down nonsense all the way through February 9th. It's after that point we start going below average, right like that. See that? These are all below average temperatures after the 9th. But before then, you're doing these spikes, these synoptically driven spikes, because the low pressure is moving at us and it's cutting a little bit too far inland, and that will invite some warm air. Now, initially, this is Monday. Tomorrow's going to be a warm day on the opposite side of that warm front. This evening, today's only 34 in the Lehigh Valley, and then we get this evening, get the snow showers, right? But tomorrow it's gone because it's almost 50, right? Comes down on Tuesday. Here's Wednesday, again, 33 ahead of that system. So, and then it's coming in overnight too, where it's going to be even colder. So you're going to have a lot of wintry mix stuff going on there. Even though warm air is coming in aloft, the surface is staying colder, and you're going to have a mess there. But you get to Thursday, look at that. It gets to 49 again. So it's going to change to rain, we think. And there's another one right in here. Here's Saturday. Again, 34 at the start. So you're going to have enough to start this off as sleet freezing or maybe some snow, then sleet freezing rain. But Sunday, 41. Changes over to rain. It warms up behind it, okay? So you have that up and down stuff. Once you get past that is when it starts to go down like this. And here's our next signal in that 12-13 time frame. Look at the highs. There is no spike after that. It's just, so it would favor snow at that point if something maintains there. That is a winter storm signal in our long-range outlook on Friday, that 11th to 14th period. So this area right here is the one you want to watch for more snow. I don't think the first two are going to really produce too much outside of far northern areas for that second one. Even northern areas for the first one probably will be mostly ice in this case. Now, what about long-term? A lot of you have been hearing about the sudden stratospheric warming and a split polar vortex. Well, the models are still showing that. Here is what it shows. This is moving really fast, but you have one consolidated vortex that eventually will split into two by the time we get close to mid-month. And you see that here. That vortex sitting right over top of us. In this case, if that happens, this will set up the late February and early March period to be colder than average. Okay, if this in fact integrates with the troposphere where we live, because this is the stratospheric level. This is way up there. Okay. This is at 10 millibars. So if this does, in fact, downwell to the troposphere and interact and change our sensible weather, that sensible weather effect would be late February, like the final week of February, basically, and then the first week of March. And looking at the February ensemble pattern, European ensemble is picking this up very well, the extended ensemble. It shows that we remain slightly below average through that first week of March, partially because of a result of this. Now, this is the GFS ensemble. The European model is doing the same thing, okay? They're both doing the same thing where it's splitting this vortex, and that's why it does have some weight to it, but this is going to set up later. This has nothing to do with what's going on over the next week or two, okay? The overrunning pattern that I spoke of. The only thing we are completely behind and supportive of and confident in is the precipitation, which is, again, a godsend because we need it. February extended ensemble pattern for the month of this go through March 2nd, but it keeps from now through March 2nd, and it has the entire period solidly above average. It might not even be just slightly. This is the European extended, and it shows solidly above average precipitation. The GFS ensemble agrees with that idea. Again, solidly above average precipitation. So we will take it in any form we can get it. I know a lot of you want snow, and I don't think anybody wants ice. I hope not. But we'll take that too, as long as it's not too dangerous and it maybe changes to rain or something, because we can certainly use that. Whatever precipitation we get in any form will be welcomed. And so this is the most confident forecast we have for how February plays out. We're going to see about this and see if it gets colder in response to that at the end of the month in early February, in response to that sudden stratospheric warming, or at least the split vortex as it's shown now. If that holds and it does interact with the troposphere and changes our sensible weather pattern, this could result where it could stay cold all the way through the end of winter. Instead of these last couple of years, we get to this point of February, and I was already killing the Weather Weeklies videos because we really didn't have anything to look forward to. Well, now we do, so we're going to keep it going for a while, and we'll see how this goes in the next couple of weeks. But again, next week at least, week to through about mid-month and probably beyond that, we're going to have this overrunning gradient pattern to deal with, and we can get to start. It'll start off a lot more icy at first, and then we'll kind of transition more to like snow as we get down the line. But that would be in the second week of February, close to Valentine's Day, most likely, or just before it. So to summarize, up and down synoptically driven temperature pattern is expected through February 9th. We're going to have spikes up and down during that period. Cold to start these systems, so you get a lot of icing and stuff. And then it goes over to rain and on a few of those systems, the one on Wednesday night into Thursday, then the one on Saturday night into Sunday. Overrunning thermal gradient events will be multiple, initially favoring a wintry mix or ice, and then when we get later in the second week of February, we could be dealing with more snow at that point. Winter storm signal between the 11th and the 14th, that's the one I'm talking about. That's the one I think has the best potential to produce snow, but I know it's a way out there yet. Stratospheric help for late February, we'll see. We'll see. There's no guarantee that it will interact with the troposphere in a way that would be beneficial to our sensible weather if you're a winter lover. So it's just something that's there. It's possible. I wouldn't say it's likely yet. and it's not going to affect anything as far as our pattern is concerned until, again, the last week of February and the first week of March, most likely. So we'll keep an eye on that, but that is not really the main focus of what we're trying to do here today. We're trying to focus on the shorter term. I know it's a long-term outlook that we do here in Weather Weeklies, but it's still long-term. To me, long-term is still 2 weeks. That's, I know what the pattern is going to be like for the 2 weeks. It's going to be quite busy. So expect, we'll put something out like a snow and ice map, probably ice at first, ice maps out, and then a couple days later, we it's right back at it again. Okay, it's going to be in succession. So the frequency of events are going to be certainly higher, but we'll take precipitation in any way we can get it. I'm EPAWA meteorologist Bobby Marchers. That is this edition of Weather Weeklies for Sunday, February 2nd. Join us again next week. At that point, we should be getting into the colder stuff, maybe have a better look at that system that's coming in around the 12th, 13th time frame, which is our winter storm signal period, and I'll talk to you then. Take care.